Hello and welcome again to another episode of A2theK's WrestleTalk Podcast. This is Carl, as you may tell, and do you want to say hello, Anthony?
Hey everybody!
So
another fun-filled week, eh, Carl?
Another fun-filled week. So
a hell
as
of
you
a
probably
week,
come to, well, there's a lot to discuss, a lot of happenings this week. But as you've come to know and love by now, we will obviously take you through this week in wrestling. So we'll break down the shows. Obviously we covered Raw on the last episode, so it'll be NXT, Dynamite, and SmackDown. Then we'll go into the Ringside Report, where there's quite a lot to talk about in terms of the happenings this week.
There certainly is.
There certainly is. And then we'll finish off with segment 3, which in this case we'll be talking around our most ridiculous angles or stories that we've ever seen put out there by WWE or any other wrestling promotion. So some interesting.
We've done our best to keep that to a lean 10, but you could go on forever with that topic.
Yeah, it was a hard slog.
It really was. I think that's probably the first time, without going into the segment too quickly, that's probably the first time that I've done my 5 straight away. Like that's it, top of my head. There you go. But yeah, there's a rich area of information there you can work from with that. But nevertheless, so with segment 1, you all right if I kick off, Carl, with NXT being the first one for this week?
Let's do it.
Sound right. So NXT. I'm still trying to show it a bit of love. I'm still new to the NXT side of things, but I'm going to be a little negative with the first one. So we kick off the show with surprisingly Finn Balor, and it's always nice to see Finn. Obviously, he's been sort of concentrating on the NXT UK stuff, so we haven't seen him a lot on the usual Wednesday show, bar the odd promo here and there and that sort of thing. But we had a match with him versus Fabian. I want to say I'm pronouncing that right. And to be honest, I was a little disappointed with them. I know it's an opener match and you don't expect a lot from it. And obviously Balor took the win. But it just, I don't know, it felt a little bit like Balor was coasting. I don't know how you felt about that match, Carl, because he's a great wrestler. It's always great to see, but it didn't feel like he could be bothered, really.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I think I was excited to see him back because we haven't really seen much of him in a long while. And, we're talking about a former Universal Champion here. It was like main event and shows, and then we just see him kick off NXT after kind of quite a big stint where he's been missing. And yeah, I was very underwhelmed. It just felt like a very average match.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Firmly whelmed or underwhelmed, certainly not overwhelmed. But no, it was okay. It probably wouldn't have even got a mention, if I'm honest, for this week in wrestling, other than the fact it was Finn in the match. It had just been an opener. There wouldn't have been a lot to say. But Finn's back. Yay. At a time like this, when you've got a very limited amount of active talent, given the current situation, I feel like they're not using Finn properly. I know it's hard to go, well, let's put him back on the main shows, but and we'll get into moaning about SmackDown and the like, but it's getting very fucking samey.
Mm-hmm.
And Raw didn't worry. They threw NXT talent at Raw just for the fucking hell of it. So we got to see. It's one bit of credit I'll give Raw this week. I know we've already talked about it, but they provided at least a little bit of variety in terms of who's having a match with who by putting some NXT talent in there. So it's not like they're scared of putting them back into other shows. But anyway, I'm on about SmackDown shortly. So we move on from that. We go into a promo from Charlotte, which, again, I'm not going to be too negative about. It's something you need. We've had the number 1 contender sort of revealed from the ladder match. We had Io Shirai take the win on the ladder match. She's now the number 1 contender for Charlotte's title. And this was just Charlotte talking shit, basically, as she does. Again, I don't want to sound too negative, but it's the typical Charlotte stuff. She's the best. She's beaten everyone. Blah blah blah. But nevertheless, you needed something. You needed Charlotte to address like this. This is going to be what's going forward. She's going to have a match with Io Shirai, and she needs to sort of big herself up and put her down. That's the paint by numbers format. But sadly, I get a bit bored with the paint by numbers format. I'd have much preferred a promo from Io Shirai or a video package of some sort. But again, they want to showcase Charlotte. They want people to go, that's a big name that we know, because we're all goldfish, Carl. And if we don't see something we know immediately, or at least within the first few minutes, we're all going to lose interest and turn off, aren't we? So
that's it. I mean, I forget who Charlotte Flair is until she does that really mundane woo. Then I'm like, it's Rick's kid.
That's
So,
the one.
you know,
Yeah, you can tell because she wooed.
that's it.
So again, I'm trying not to be too negative about NXT, but I think they could have done something to build up their match without just having Charlotte talking, which she's done a million times, and we know how the shtick goes. She's the best, she's better than all the rest. Simply the best. I think that's how it goes. And then we move on to another women's match with Xia Li versus Aaliyah. I'm not too familiar with that Aaliyah. I assume she's fairly new. I feel bad for saying she's fairly, because I've not seen them on the main NXT show all too much, because I know that they do a lot of like road shows and stuff like that don't get televised, and a lot of the workers are really putting their all into these sort of shows and are known in that capacity but don't get a lot of TV time. So I don't mean any disrespect when I say I don't really know them.
I think she's probably been in NXT for around a year and a half now. I first learned who she was in the WWE Network special. It was called Breaking Ground or something.
Oh,
where
yeah.
they kind of did like a behind the scenes in the performance center. So I think she's some like got like an Egyptian gimmick or something. Well, she did have anyway.
Right.
So yeah, I think she's been there for a bit, but she's only just starting to get quite a bit of screen time.
Yeah, and sadly, I say sadly, I mean it's something you got to do. It's part of the bread and butter and the building up as you're rising through the ranks of these sort of things. But she was basically fed to Xia Li, and it was a solid match. But Xia Li dominated and took the win, as you'd expect, because they're trying to build her up as a. I assume she'll end up going into the main event picture at some point or something along that line. But she's certainly being built up as a strong sort of wrestler, and obviously they need people to squash, don't they? So that's what she was there for. So yeah, all around it was a good match, but pretty much what you'd expect in terms of results. Then we move, and you might have to clue me in a little bit here, Carl. This the cruiserweight title bout, the interim cruiserweight championship. It's getting a little bit confusing for me now, because obviously, given what's happened, and I know we're going to talk about it in the Ringside Report, some of the talent involved we now already know are released, and it's getting a little bit chaotic. But this next match, we had Isaiah Scott versus Akira Tozawa for that that championship, for that contendership match. And now Tozawa took the win, and I believe he's perfectly safe when it comes to what we're going to talk about in the Ringside Report and the recent firings that I'm sure everyone knows about. But it seems like the championship sort of bout as a whole, the tournament, is a bit messy now anyway, and I can't see realistically how it's going to be any of the talents who are gone, like notably gone anyway. I know it's all pre-taped, so it's hard to not have them in it, do you know what I mean? But it seems to have gotten really fucking messy, and it kind of took some of the momentum out of the tournament for me, really. But
yeah, it's a hard one to try and get behind it and kind of feel shocked by the results when you know that some of them have already been laid off. We saw Drake Maverick tweet out that he's still going to be taking part in the series. Is it? Am I right in thinking that they're doing it similar to some of the stuff they've done in Mexico and Japan, where instead of it just being like a standard tournament bracket, it's like a best of 3 or something like that, and then the winner,
I believe so. Yeah.
The winner goes through. So I'm guessing we'll still see a couple of matches with Drake and stuff like that. I think he'll finish his his bracket, but obviously it's pretty safe to say he's not going to be advancing.
Yeah, it's really sad. I mean, we'll talk more on that. I won't harp on too much, but yeah, I just feel like, and I don't know how they could have done it any other way, I don't suppose, but it to me, it's kind of tainted the tournament a little bit.
Yeah,
because there was a lot of NXT talent there that have been sort of squashed without much mention. You know about the bigger names, but these guys, Drake Maverick's probably the biggest name, and that's probably because of how gut wrenching his post was on Facebook, Twitter, whatever social media he was using at the time. Yeah, so obviously Tozawa took the win on that match, and that obviously furthers him in the tournament anyway. So then we have a match: Tegan Knox versus I want to say Raquel Gonzalez. I just keep calling her Gonzalez, so I hope I'm pronouncing the first name right. To be honest, again, with these sort of things, I hate to moan too much about, because I've said it a million times now, and I know that there's always a place for this sort of thing, but this was a match that contained a lot of shenanigans. So then we had Dakota Kai and your favorite creator wrestler, Carl, Shotzi Blackheart. They were there to cause some shenanigans in the match as well, and ultimately Gonzalez took the loss because of, like, she was looking dominant in the match and took the loss because of the distraction. And I know there's always a place for that sort of thing, but you know, when you're just sort of wanting a good clean match between the two of them, and then you get that kind of bullshit. I don't know. Personal thing for me, that, I suppose, but because I know Tegan Knox is a great wrestler as well. I kind of just wanted to see that sort of bout between the two of them without any of the sort of messing around. But we can't always get back. And then we went to I was actually really made up with this one. It's one of the main things that made me like. It sort of helped me rating towards NXT this week, and that was a video package or interview or whatever you want to call it that they did on Keith Lee. Now, I've been slightly fascinated by Keith Lee anyway since he entered into the Rumble, because before that, didn't have a clue who he was, if I'm honest. But this is, if you haven't seen it, go and watch it. It's great. It shows you, it gives you a good idea of sort of how much passion he's got for the business, where he started, where he's heading, what, you know, and just that sort of build up and that drive that he's got to be the sort of the best at what he does, I suppose. And this is the kind of thing that I'm a fan of. Like, this is where I slightly go back to before when I was saying about we didn't have to just have a promo with Charlotte. A video package like that, building up Charlotte's opponent, would have been great. You know, I'm always a fan of stuff like that. And this, certainly for me, this helps me get to know Keith Lee a bit better, and it helps me get behind him as a wrestler. And I thoroughly enjoyed the video package, and I think it broke things up a little bit as well. It you know, makes it all a little bit more enjoyable. Did you see that one, Carl?
I did. Same sentiments. It was a bit of an eye opener to what he's obviously gone through, and you know, I think he said at some point in there that he was actually kicked out of his house when we decided that he wanted to become a wrestler and stuff like that. So you know, you can see the kind of trials and tribulations that he's gone through to get to where he is today, and you know, he could have quite have easily just been another name on the indie scene, but he's been picked up by NXT, and he continues to impress. So it's you know, it's a really good story.
You know, he is, on top of the fact that he's had that sort of that hard luck background, as it were. He's a very talented wrestler. I can see why he was picked up. He's great to watch. He's surprisingly agile for his size, and that's what half the reason he's fascinating to watch. But yeah, very good. You know, I think it's on the WWE Network as well. But you know, if you've not seen it, to anyone who's listening, that is, you know, certainly go and have a watch. It's very illuminating and very useful. The next one, you and I had a little bit of banter before we started recording here, Cal. So I wasn't overly thrilled with this one, but I think you were slightly more impressed than I was. So we had a sort of debuting Dexter Lumis. I think he's another one this is probably the first time he's been on TV, but he has been with NXT. And he was up against Tahuti Miles, who is known for being squashed, I guess. Now, for me, I wasn't expecting the newcomer to take the win. I'm from my experience with NXT so far, I'm more familiar with Miles, so I was expecting, you know, a good display, but Miles ultimately taking the win. And basically, this Dexter character, he almost embarrassingly beat him. He got him quite quickly with the submission as well. So it weren't even like a pinfall victory or anything. He made him tap out and done it in quite quick fashion. So that massive build for Lumis, but probably not the best for Tahuti Miles, who quite recently has took a loss on the main roster as well. Yeah. So I wasn't overly impressed, but I believe you have some notes on that, Carl, because you sort of differ an opinion on me on this one.
Yeah, I mean, this was the first time I've seen this Dexter Lumis guy, but my God, he definitely stood out. Just something about him. I think the whole way they packaged him up was just really enticing. Like he's got kick-ass, like psychopathic entrance music, the way he kind of slid into the ring and was staring down the camera. I was like, okay, who the fuck's this guy? And then, I don't know, just he's built like a brick shit house anyway, and just kind of the way he, handled himself in the ring, and he was very kind of stiff in the way he was kind of twatting Tahuti Miles basically. Yeah. And then the submission finish as well. I was just, I don't know, I was very impressed for I'm not sure if it is his debut, but for the first time I'm kind of seeing him.
I believe it's his TV debut. I could be wrong on that, but I think he has been around on some of the unrecorded stuff. But it's certainly the first time he's been on NXT TV.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, for me, he's got something. I think so. I'm excited to see where he goes.
It's funny you say that because I imagine, given his hard hitting style, which, like you say, he was definitely, I don't want to say stiff. It almost sounds like a negative, but he was definitely a stiff worker in that sense. But it'd be interesting to see sort of bouts with him and the likes of Shinsuke, who also works very stiff. You'd end up seeing like a very sort of almost realistic looking bout between the two. But no, I won't disagree that he's got something. I suppose I was just more vexed by the finish to it, really. because I'm not even got an issue with him taking the win. It was just sort of how quickly and how easily he dominated, I suppose.
Yeah. I think the fact he just kind of came out of nowhere as well, you kind of just think, oh, it's like another enhancement talent almost, because they've been doing a lot of these squash matches with people that we don't really know. And then
but this is the thing. This is why I'll never be happy, Carl, because I'm moaning about it. But it certainly wasn't predictable. So I can't moan about it really. But yeah, so we move on from that to this was quite interesting, to be honest, and it almost makes up for the sort of lazy beginning with Finn, because we had Velveteen Dream continuing to seek out his title match against Adam Cole. Now, I'm not sure what the situation in reality is with Adam Cole, because he was again not present. They'd done a video package in which he basically was saying that nobody's worthy of a title shot, but I believe he was meant to be at NXT, so I'm not sure. It's obviously got something to do with the restrictions and the isolation people are having to do, but for, presumably in real life he's not been able to get there anyway. So so they've done it as a video package, and Velveteen Dream was basically saying, surprisingly for me, because he doesn't seem the respectful type from what I've seen so far with the way he's treated Thingy Strong and Bobby Fish and that. But yeah, surprisingly, he was acknowledging, saying he is like, his greatest of all time as far as NXT champions go. And then we have Finn Balor taking umbrage to this. Obviously, from a story point of view, this makes a lot of sense, because Finn was probably one of the best, if not the best, NXT champion. And whilst Adam Cole's reign has officially tipped over into being the longest reign as NXT champion, you could still argue that he's not necessarily the best. He certainly wasn't NXT champ at a time when NXT was at its peak for me. And from a story point of view, I think this is good. It makes sense to Finn's character at the moment in the heel angle he's playing. It would be a match that I really want to see between him and Velveteen Dream. I don't think we've actually ever seen that bout before, and they're both great in the ring. And they both got a lot about them as far as in-ring presence. So I look forward to it. And basically the result of what's gone on here is they've both agreed to they never officially said it, but I imagine it's a number one contenders match next week. So I imagine, again, it wasn't officially thingy, but he's took umbrage to the comments from Velveteen Dream, and that's what Velveteen Dream's after. So presumably if he went over, which from a booking point of view I think it'd be unlikely, but I've tried to predict these things before. If anyone wants to go back to my thoughts on Super Showdown, you'll see how wrong I can be. But likely that I'd expect Velveteen Dream to go over, but if Finn did go over, then you'd expect he'd be the one going for the title shot, which would be surprising to put Finn back in the main title picture like that. But
if it just feels weird, because he's just come from nowhere, hasn't he? I said before that this is a guy who was like one of the most over guys on the WWE main roster. He was pushed to the moon in NXT, pushed to the moon on Raw, was given the Universal Championship, got injured, and then just fell by the wayside, like consistently, to the point where he just disappeared off television, really, unless you were following NXT UK. So it's crazy to have a star that big.
I could be speaking out of turn here, but we live in the UK, for those who haven't gathered from our accents, and we don't even watch NXT UK. No. So, as far as main show stuff goes, like that's how in exile he sort of is. And don't get me wrong, they want to push this new product. The WWE they've got dreams of going like NXT Japan, NXT UK, NXT Europe. They've got dreams of having NXT for fucking everything. But for me, like, I can see why they want to push NXT UK with a big name, but it puts them into obscurity.
Yeah, and I think for me as well, I'm not even that over on Balor when he's not the Demon.
Yeah, and I do like the fact they protect the Demon, though, because we've not seen the Demon in a long time, and that's because he's not taking too many wins at the minute. And, so far the Demon's never been beaten as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's just more of a... his gimmick when he isn't the Demon, I don't really get it, because he's not really that good on the mic, and I don't know, he just walks around with his little leather jacket, so I can kind of see...
his finger pistol.
Exactly, so I can kind of see why he's fell by the wayside a little bit, but I don't know, it baffles me when you have someone who, when he is the Demon character and when he isn't just trying to be this fucking Balor Club shite, he's a really big star, so I'm interested that he's popped back up, but at the same time, I felt even the way he was speaking to Dream, he just got outclassed again by Dream on the microphone, just like Dream's nuances, kind of saying, "Oh well, if you want a date, then you can at least be a gentleman and pick me up next Wednesday." You know what I mean? It's just like the way he is. It's just
To be fair, I honestly, I think you've got a point. I think Dream is miles better on the ring. On the ring, Carl, on the mic. They're both probably on par in the ring, but I think as far as mic skills go, I think Dream's got better mic skills. I'll be honest. Balor, the demon gimmick is really good, and don't be wrong, when he was having his sort of back and forth with Seth, it was the build up and the way he was selling the demon gimmick was really good. But like you say, this Balor Club stuff at the minute, not the best.
Yeah.
And I don't. It's difficult to buy him as a heel when he doesn't use the demon thing either. Like, I don't know. I prefer him as a face character anyway, if I'm honest.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, ultimately we're gonna have a match next week between the two, which I do really look forward to.
Yep.
So then we move on to a tag team match with the Undisputed Era and Matt Riddle and a debuting Tim Thatcher, who I believe is a known person in the Indies. Not a name that was big for me, but a big, like, wow, he's on NXT, yeah. And it was announced by Pete Dunne, who's obviously stuck in this country at the moment. So he couldn't participate in the tag match. So we had Matt Riddle and Tim Thatcher. Now, do you know anything of Tim Thatcher, Carl?
Absolutely
I don't.
nothing.
No.
Yeah,
so
really.
For those who want like a deeper insight into this debut, sorry, you've come to the wrong place. But yeah, so I mean, I can only give impressions of what I saw of him in this match, and I mean, to be fair, yeah, it was a strong first match. They gave him the submission win. I think he got the armbar on Strong for the win. So he come out looking good from it. But yeah, it was a match. It happens.
And it happened.
Yeah. So yeah, not bad. And if you knew who Tim Thatcher was, you'd probably be really excited about that. So yeah, so we move on to Tommaso Ciampa being interviewed over the bout he obviously had with Gargano, and I'm a bit conflicted on this one, to be honest, Cal, because he basically has been like, yeah, that's it is done, despite the dodgy finish, I'll accept he's the better man and so on like that. And it's like, why? Like, that's the type of thing that's like, you've been screwed over and you're not bothered by it, which doesn't make sense to his character. So first of all, yeah, I was like, okay, I don't know what, like, you're done with it just because they've said be done with it, but I'd prefer a clean finish if they're going to finish it there.
Yeah.
Like, I was annoyed last week when it finished the way it did, because I was like, well, they're clearly not done with this feud. And now I'm annoyed because they finished it like that and they are done with this feud.
Yeah, it's one of them. I kind of didn't want it to carry on, but at the same time, the way it ended and him to be so just blasé about it and happy to just, forget about it, just doesn't make sense.
See, this is Becky Lynch all over again. Where it's like, well, yeah, that happened, but I'm over it now. It's like, yeah, but should you be? Shouldn't you be pissed off? But yeah, poor booking for what they went with. But we had a sudden attack from he's no longer Killer Cross, Carl. I don't know if you picked up on that. We have Karrion Kross now. Karrion Kross attacked Tommaso Ciampa and laid him out. So that's who he's going for. He's gonna feud with Ciampa, which, to be fair, should be good. I've heard good things about Killer Kross, and we know that Ciampa is, he's a great in-ring technician. And I've only ever seen him fight Gargano, so it'd be nice to see if he fights someone else.
Yeah, I think fucking Karrion. What is that about?
I believe it has something to do with like decaying animal flesh or something. I think that's the term. Just to make sure I don't sound weird, I'm gonna Google that right quick. Right, but I'm confident.
Seems odd that you know this off the cuff, Anthony.
I read it somewhere, if I'm honest with you, but now I'm like, did I read that or did I imagine? But yeah, I think they've tried to make a connection, as I understand it. Yeah, the decaying flesh of dead animals is what Karrion means, and I believe WWE would not. And this is speculation, by the way; it's not confirmed. But I don't think they were overly keen on the term killer in their PG product or their semi-PG product. So it kind of makes sense, the slight change, and at least there's a bit of meaning to Karrion. They haven't just give him some random name or made him Steve McGillicuddy. Sorry, that's got to be the weakest. McGillicuddy's the shittest fucking name for a wrestler, isn't it? Really. Yeah. Anyway,
I feel bad on him, to be fair. Poor Joe. Poor Joe.
Yeah. And for anyone who might go, it wasn't even Steve. I know it was Mike. I just wanted to give him a different name slightly. So yeah, so we had that, and that was pretty much how the show finished. So it was good to see the final sort of like, yes, he's turned up, and we're going to start cracking on with this this hopefully dominance of Karrion Kross. But I was just a bit vexed by the fact that it's like, so they are done with the Gargano thing, which I'm happy with, but why not give it a clean finish? Not to harp on about the week before. Why not give that a clean finish? Like, why did you have to have all that fucking going on? It just makes no sense. Unless they just want you to like Gargano even less. So he won by being a twat. So now we hate him even more, even though he's not a very convincing heel anyway. I don't know.
Yeah.
Messy.
Strange.
But as NXT goes, it was a better one. To be honest, I've give it another 0.5 as we've been talking, because this was better than last week and it deserves better than last week. So my rating this week, I'm going to give it a 2.5, just because I started out with a 2, but the more I've talked about it, there was more in it. There was more to enjoy than I got out of last week. And last week I gave everything a 2. So 2.5 I think is fair.
Yeah, I gave it the same score. I think there was a couple of big kind of standout bits really with it. So I was very impressed with that Dexter Lumis debut. I think he's going to have a big future. I really like the Keith Lee video package. I thought that was a really nice touch.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say we're suckers for a good video package, aren't we?
Well, exactly. I like the Velveteen Dream stuff, and then I thought obviously you've got finally the debut of Karrion Kross. We've been speaking about it for a while, so it was nice to, I think, looking at the whole kind of show, there was a good few exciting points there. So 2.5, I think, right middle of the road. Thought it was well deserved.
Yeah, definitely, totally agree.